This video is to help newcomers with the later writings of Paul. The letters Paul wrote in the 50s, the main issue in his letters was against Judaizing, and thus he wrote Romans, Galatians, Corinthians, where he stated, "The works of the Mosaic law will not save. Rather, we are under the law of Christ." But in the 60s AD, there appeared a new heresy called Gnosticism. Gnostics taught the Old Testament God was harsh and cruel. He created man with imperfection, and thus all matter was flawed, incapable of salvation. The Father of Jesus, the good God, sent Jesus to show the way of salvation. Since the flesh is inherently corrupt, the Son never became man. The Docetists taught the Son only appeared to be flesh, and most Gnostics rejected the sacraments of baptism and communion as being inefficacious. They said salvation required special knowledge without which one cannot be saved. As a result, Gnostics lived a life of asceticism or licentiousness. 62 CE, Paul is in prison for the first time. Epaphras, a co-worker of Paul, planted the church in Colossae, and he visits Paul in prison to get help with a new sort of heresy bothering the region. From prison, Paul writes Ephesians, Colossians, Philippians, and Philemon to instruct in correct doctrine and warn about this new heresy. This new heresy at Colossae was a form of early Gnosticism, which included worldly philosophy and Jewish traditions, the worship of angels together with access to a visionary realm associated with harsh human regulations. The heresy had an inferior view of Christ, which is combated in chapter 1, 15 through 20 by true doctrine. Paul writes, "Christ is the image of the invisible God, the firstborn over all creation. For by him all things were created that are in heaven and that are on earth, visible and invisible, whether thrones or dominions or principalities or powers. All things were created through him and for him, and he is before all things, and in all things consist. And he is the head of the body, the church, who is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead. And in all things he may have preeminence. For it pleased the Father that in him all the fullness should dwell, and by him to reconcile all things to himself by him, whether things on earth or in heaven, having been made peace through the blood on this cross." The Colossians next were warned to beware of philosophies not built on Christ. 2:8 reads, "Beware lest anyone cheat you through philosophy and empty deceit, according to the tradition of men, according to the basic principles of the world, and not according to Christ. For in him dwells all the fullness of the Godhead bodily, and you are complete in him who is the head of all principality and power." 2:16 through 23 reads, "So let no one judge you in food or drink or regarding a festival or new moon or Sabbaths, which are a shadow of things to come, but the substance is of Christ. Let no one cheat you of your reward, taking delight in false humility and worship of angels, intruding into those things which he has not seen, vainly puffed up by his fleshly mind, and not holding fast to the head, from whom all the body, nourished and knit together by joints and ligaments, grow with the increase that is from God. Therefore, if you died with Christ from the basic principles of the world, why, as though living in the world, do you subject yourself to regulations? Do not touch, do not taste, do not handle, which all concerns which perish with the using according to the commandments and doctrines of men. These things indeed have the appearance of wisdom and self-imposed religion, false humility, and neglect of the body, but are of no value against the indulgence of the flesh." Then chapters 3 and 4, Paul reiterates the Christian walk. This is more fully developed in Ephesians. So go read Ephesians. Put to death and put on the new life, for Christ oversees the home. Husbands, love your wives. Wives, be submitted to your husbands, as children are submitted to parents. Summary. The later epistles of Paul in the 60s become focused on false Christianity involving worldly philosophy, Jewish rites, and a lifestyle of asceticism or lasciviousness. Gnosticism. Gnosticism rejects Jesus coming in the flesh. Paul warns the Colossians to beware. False teaching becomes such a problem later on that Paul appoints Timothy to lead Ephesus and Titus to lead Crete. His final writings exhort his co-workers to keep to sound doctrine and avoid the heretics, for many are being led astray. 1 Timothy 6:20-21 reads, O Timothy, guard which was committed to your trust, avoiding the profane and idle babblings and contradictions of what is falsely called knowledge. By professing it, some have strayed from the faith. God bless.